Perfect. All right, guys. Jill, first to you. Obviously, one of the most impressive things about your journey through the show was not letting that back injury kind of overtake you. What was it like fighting through that injury, and how did it feel to kind of overcome that to make it to the Final Four?
Well, I was so mad because it's a weakness I had, and I just bent down to tie my shoe, and it's taken me out before. But I knew the last time it happened that what to do. The first time it started to happen to me, I was in bed for 2 weeks. Joe saved me. He really did, because Joe said to me, "Don't you
I
know
don't know
a house
how.
down
Yeah.
here?" And I'm like, "I do." And it didn't go into it, but it was Phaedra Parks. She was on Married to Medicine. She knows everybody in Atlanta. And in 5 minutes, she had a doctor to see me. I mean, but I loved in your interview, Joe. It's like, we can't lose Jill or we lose a number.
Yeah.
Because she's weak. We gotta keep the weak ones. I love you. Thank you for that. You know what? It took me out in the end. It was part of the reasons why I didn't make it, because I could not do the tossing. Everything else I was able to do.
A physical injury
Everything
in a physical injury in a game like this is just a huge disadvantage. So it's
Yeah.
like once that happened to Jill, it was just kind of like, okay,
It was a matter of time where it was gonna be.
she's gonna tough it out
Yeah.
as long as she can. But
I thought the orange thing was going to kill me, and it didn't. It turns
You
out
did
to
good.
kill Joe.
It's because Joe's so damn tall, you know.
my neck hurt so bad the next day. I really remember being like, oh, that wasn't, because even though like you watch it, I still think like I was holding it for like 25 minutes. So when it was done, I was like, oh, my neck feels like it's gonna actually break off.
See, it was
By the
my
way,
teeth.
good
I thought
try.
the next day my teeth were going to fall out. My front teeth got as sore as they could be.
Maybe that's why Pal's tooth was already in
Yeah.
I'd
trouble.
say it
That's what I
loosened it
said.
up. It had to loosen it up, because my teeth, I couldn't even, the next day I was like so sore. My teeth were so sore.
Well, by the way, good try getting her to drop at the
I was
same
like,
time.
girl, just we'll drop it at the same time.
I
Just
can't believe
drop
you-
your horn. Because I was
By the
starting
way,
to get
if
where I
you had
couldn't
done that
breathe.
with me, I probably would have done it.
Yeah, I'd
You
be
had the
like,
wrong
come
amount.
on, Jill, let's just drop this thing and go fix some food. I'm
I
tired.
totally would have. You know what? Did you hear me say to her? Because we had a girl pact, which clearly didn't work, but we were going to be like, us three, right, going to the end. And I had, me, I said, she hadn't won the GOAT yet. And I didn't think I was going home that episode. Like, I didn't think I was being eliminated no matter what in that one. So I said to her, listen, if you've got this, I'm going to drop it. And she says, I got it. I said, are you sure? Because I could have kept going. And I always kind of felt like I always fell in the middle. I could have kept going. And she said she had it. And I think that kind of helped her. Because it's like, if she dropped it and I could have stayed in, because I knew that if she got it, she wasn't going to send me home by dropping it for her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, that was an interesting one.
Joe, I think one of my favorite things about your journey throughout this entire show is obviously, even in that final challenge, right before the final challenge, everybody was like, Joe's just been skating by, Joe's been doing this, Joe's been doing that. And then, of course, how did it feel to kind of just eventually win the final competition and be like, you know what, guys, pound sand, I'm here and I've been doing things?
Yeah, no, that did feel good to win, even though it didn't, I knew going into it, you just didn't want to come in last. So figures that was, but I was, and that was honestly a little part of my strategy. It was because I did figure an ending competition was going to be somewhat of like an obstacle, longer course. And everybody, everyone was just kind of like, oh, no one's going to beat Day at the end. No one's going to beat Day at the end. And she was obviously a great competitor, but I just figured like a longer challenge, something like that was more in my wheelhouse, opposed to balancing a book on my head and building a mannequin. So, but overall, yeah, I know I did. It felt nice to win that one.
For sure. Jason, speaking of the vote to vote out Day, obviously for me, that was the right move in the moment, but kind of looking back, it's probably the move that won Pal the show. Would you have changed anything about what happened there?
Well, when Joe, so I had to go between her and Joe. And Joe had just talked to me before we actually voted. And of course, we see Joe's like, I don't even know what Jason's going to do. I'm very confused. But Joe had came to me and said, this is what it is. If you can, please don't vote for me. And I'm like, well, Joe, we're all in this. We're basically down to it for ourselves. now we're thinking, okay, who can we go up against later on, blah, blah, blah. And so Joe had asked me not to vote for him. And going into that final day, even though me and Davon had an alliance, she never did say to me once, don't vote for me during that episode. And so I was like, and then Jill was like, you got to take her out because she's going to take you out. And I'm like, yeah, I know what I got to do, So I was like, okay. So if we have to balance a book on her head at the end, Davon could do it. Joe cannot. Even though I love Joe. And by this time, Joe is my roommate. And I'm like, okay, so I had never voted for Joe up to this point. And of course, I'd never voted for Davon because she had never been on that side of it yet. So, but I felt like also at that time, they both had me. So Joe, if I'd have been there, I didn't feel like Joe would have voted for me. And I didn't feel like this. So I was I was between a rock and a hard place. And so it all come down to like the first episode. Who, like I said to Tasha, who do you think you can beat in the end, me or Joey? And so she, of course, picked me. And that's what I had to kind of think about. Who do I think in the end could I go against and maybe have somewhat of a chance? I knew I could go against Joe because, I mean, there's times and I love Joe to death, but there's times we can see Joe, he's like a newborn baby goat. He can't even walk. So I was like, okay, I'm keeping Joe. So sorry, but I wouldn't have done it any different. It had to be done. So
we kind of see this like depth of emotions just kind of ring out of you. What was kind of going through your mind the moment you realized obviously you were being eliminated?
I was so angry. I was just so mad at myself. I was like, I knew that if I had been able to not time out on either one, I would have made it, because puzzles is something that, I mean, the guys saw I was much later. You don't see it really in the show, but I got there much later than they did. And I was already halfway done when it rung. So all I needed was, if I had known the name of the order of the names, or even gotten the toss in, I would have made it. And that's what made me mad, that I didn't know the names thing. And I didn't know that, by the way, until I got home. I still didn't know like how the names happened. Like that it was the order of the people, how they left. I don't even know when I figured that out. But I was just so mad at myself because I was so close. Yeah, I was really upset.
For sure.
I was a bit of a crybaby. It was an emotional 29 days, 24 hours a day, a lot of mental, thinking, a lot of thinking. And it just came out of me. I was just hysterical.
Yeah, you can see. And I mean, obviously you're making it to the final three, so it makes plenty of sense. Joe, when you're watching you kind of make the final pitch to what I'll call the fallen castmates here, I was like watching a guy that I didn't think that we had seen the entire season. It was such a beautiful strategy on your part. What was like kind of your mind frame heading into these conversations?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, you only see so much of me during every episode. But I was playing a pretty strategic social game along with Jason and Jill and Davon. And I just knew like the strategy was, if you are going to vote because you respect the gameplay, my strongest gameplay was the social aspect. It wasn't the competition. So that's what I was going to harp and really try to push. Because that was kind of my only angle. So I ran with that the best to my ability. And
Jason, I think that you would have had a better outcome. You don't know this, but going into it, you were the front runner. Everybody in the car coming over from the hotel was voting for you. I think had you said my game was getting Devon out at the end, you could have won.
Yeah. Yeah, going into that part of it, I was so they were like, you've got to go in and talk to each one of these. And I'm like, Lord, I'm that person. I need a pound cake and some coffee and some liqueur, honey, before I talk to anybody. And of course, my head was just all over the place. What I'm going to say, what I'm going to say, what I'm going to say. And then I realized that, Jill, once the time was called, I thought, why did it not come to me? This is what I should have been talked about. It was getting Davon out. It came down to me, and I was the one that got her out. And that's where I should have been.
That's what Pow did. Pow said, I got Davon out.
Yeah.
And I don't think the truth is, I don't think, I don't know if I rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but I don't think anyone was
Everybody
gonna.
loved you, Joe. Everybody
Who
loved
voted for Joe? Does anybody?
But-
Do we know?
you. Had lost a lot of the competition.
Davon.
Davon.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
All right, I
Everybody
got a fun one. Actually, going back to day one of the show, outside of obviously saying yourself, who did you think would either win the GOAT or be in that final three? This is before you're mixing and mingling with anybody, maybe just when you're first in. Who did you think would win or be in that final three? Jill, first to you.
I thought Wendell or Devon. I figured that a gamer was going to win. But I guess now that I've played a game, they're the first ones to go because they're the target. So like Devon said, I have to win the GOAT. Like if I don't win being the GOAT, I'm going home. I also think for her, you know, that whole throwing a game really, really messed with me. I wasn't happy with it. And I feel that in a way she manipulated me. She did manipulate me. And I don't think she felt bad after it went against her. The fact that Lauren got sent, was it Lauren who got sent home because of it?
Yeah.
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 That was unfair to Lauren. It really was because she wasn't in on it. You know, she wasn't part of that.
Yeah.
And she was like an innocent victim. That's the one who I felt the worst going home when she went home because she
Same.
she was safe.
Yeah. She was blindsided.
Yeah.
And she was by me too. I had no idea.
Yeah. Well, we were all in the dark. So we were like, what the hell going on here?
And
For
the
sure.
worst part of throwing it was that I was like a professional ice skater as a kid. And spinning is something I don't get dizzy. And I'm pretending to, and I don't know if I did a good job of it. And
You didn't.
if you saw Reza at the end, first of all, they cut this out. He almost passed out. I literally am screaming, can someone get this man water? And I ran over, I got him water. I'm trying to help him. Of course, he forgets all that. But at the end, he didn't know right away that we threw it. And he was really, flapping his wings, how he beat me. And I'm like dying inside going, you did not beat me, but okay, that hurt. I'm never going to do that again. And I never did.
Joe, Jason, just a quick name or two that you thought maybe would make it to the finale.
Yeah, I think to echo what Jill said, I just assumed anyone that was on a serious competition show like Big Brother or Survivor, I just assume in my head, I'm like, one of them is going to be in the final three.
Yeah, I would have thought Wendell would have been at the end. Yeah.